Should you or should you not summon for Castorice? That's what we're talking about in today's video, guys. We're going to be going over everything from the comparing DPS to free-to-play viability to 3.0 and beyond. How good is her global passive even? Because, well, yes, I do think that adding a global passive to a premium character that you can only get in a certain time frame is pretty shitty. How good is this global passive really? Because it's coming to the game whether we like it or not, and we need to determine how good or bad it is, because that does ultimately play into the character's kit we're getting. So first, let's go ahead and start off with just a DPS compare. What do I mean by this, right? So I want to go ahead and compare the DPS to all of her 3.x counterparts. Now, I'm not going to be going and comparing like Fei Xiao and anyone prior to 3.x, so really we're going to be comparing Aglaea, Mydei, and then also Miss the Herta herself. So I want to go over a couple different things here. First of all, uptime and consistency with all of these three characters. Team cost, so this is going over the best in-slot team for all of these teams and how much each of these cost. And then finally, damage when dealing and how much damage these characters do when they're actually dealing damage. So first things first, let's start off with uptime and consistency, because I think that is a big major thing for all these characters. All of these characters have different contingencies they need to actually get uptime on like doing their massive amounts of damage, and they have different amounts of consistency within that, right? So let's start off with Castorice first. And by the way, guys, this will be based off of their best in-slot teams and how consistent they are with their best in-slot teams. Overall consistency with Aglaea for me is still around, I would say, a 7 out of 10 for me. Now, the reason I say it's a 7 out of 10 for me, guys, is because of the fact that she really does want her E1, she really does want her S1 to be like super consistent. And I'm not grading this off of having E1, S1, I'm talking about just having the base character in your account, and that really does hinder her for me, because her E1 does give her energy. Her S1 also helps her out with getting the ult back up as well. Her ult is very important to her dealing her massive amounts of damage. Same thing can be said with Castorice as well. Castorice really does want her ult to get her dragon up to do her massive amounts of damage, so that does play into consistency. So for me, I'm giving Aglaea a 7 out of 10 in her uptime and consistency, just because I really do feel like she can struggle in certain situations if she does not have the correct energy output. I do think she falls a little bit behind even what Castorice can do in this situation. Now on to Miss Herta. So Herta's consistency is completely reliant on how many enemies are on the field, right? So if there are a lot of enemies on the field, you can obviously take use of her biggest damage capabilities. So modes like Pure Fiction, she works great in. So modes like Apocalypse, like Shadow, she can work great in. But when we start moving on to the single target enemies that maybe only have 1 to maybe 2 side adds with them, her damage does fall off considerably, in my opinion. So for that, I would probably put her uptime and consistency, I would probably put her uptime and consistency a little bit below that of Aglaea. Now, the reason why I put this a little bit below Aglaea in this matter, because for me, if there are no enemies on the field, right, even if you give her energy, so you run someone like Sunday in the team, right, or someone like just giving her extra energy, right, to get the ult back up, because the ult is the thing that is going to be powering her enhanced skill move, right? So the ult directly plays into the enhanced skill, which directly plays into her main source of damage, right? But what the enhanced skill is playing into, guys, is how many stacks you have on the enemy itself, right? So even if you get the ult back up, which in turn correlates to the enhanced skill, if you don't have the stacks up, you're not dealing damage. Your damage is reliant on the stacks, so if you don't have many enemies on the field, you can't really buff that up with the team. That's why I'm putting consistency a little bit lower for someone like the Herta here, just because she is completely reliant on how many enemies are on the field and how many enemies consistently stay on the field. The next thing up is going to be Mydei. Yo, I think Mydei is incredibly consistent, right? I've seen him do some like insane clears with just himself on the team. I think his damage consistency is probably better than Aglaea, is probably better than her as well. I'll probably be putting his consistency and damage probably around an 8 out of 10. Now, I do think that he is not that good in something like Apoc Shadow. I do think he's great in MOC, and I do think he's great in Pure Fiction, because you have so many enemies attacking him. He can just get advanced action forward so many times, so many different extra turns just from how his kit works. But for that matter, I do still put him in an 8 out of 10. I think he's a Blade situation, right? Blade is incredibly consistent with the amount of damage he does, just because of the fact that, like, you lose HP, you do damage. Same thing for him. You lose HP, you deal damage. And I feel like he is probably one of the more consistent characters in this group here. And with that being said, let's finally move over to Miss Castorice here. Yeah, and they're on a 9 out of 10 in my opinion. Now, the reason why I think that she is better than all three of these in terms of consistency, maybe the scaling is not the best scaling to put here. The one major thing I feel like she lacks in is the fact that, first of all, you're kerfuckled to using her with a sustain on the team. You need to run a healer on the team to make her consistently get dragon up. So that does remove like using sustainless comps or anything like that. Also with this as well, guys, it's hard to run over Sunday. and I feel like Sunday is like kind of like built for her, but you can't really use her with Sunday. I'll talk more about Sunday when we talk about the free-to-play viability and the teams you can run on, but that is why I have her 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. In terms of like comparing her to the other DPS here, I do feel like the Herta struggles the most in terms of consistency just because of enemy count, right? Because the enemy count is the one thing that is mostly out of your control. If they release an enemy in the game that doesn't put many side adds out, the Herta becomes shit. Like, she's just pretty shit. Whereas everyone else here, you can pretty much control within the team itself. You can't really control the Herta. Now, I'm not saying that the Herta is bad by any means. I honestly think that probably the Herta is better than Aglaea, and I think the Herta is probably better than Mydei in terms of like overall value. But with that being said, I mean, I think her consistency is not that good. Now on to team cost, guys. Team cost is going to be the best in slot team. What is the actual cost of that team? And honestly, guys, Castorice's best in slot team is only a 2-cost team. Insane to say that, right? That means a 2 5-star costs, right? Because her best in slot team really just needs Tribi and you need her. That's all you really need for the team. You need Remembrance MC, you can use Gallagher. That is an amazing match made in heaven, one of her best in slot teams, hands down. So that makes her very, very good for running in low cost teams. And I think this provides her with so much utility over someone like Aglaea, right? Aglaea's best in slot team, me personally, what I would personally recommend in the team cost section here, Aglaea wants a 4-cost team, bare a minimum. Guys, this is not even accounting for Lightcones or Eidolons. Genuinely, I would say, like, for the most part, you want a 5-cost team for her, but I'm just going to go over the generalized, like, lowest cost, best in slot team cost without even going to Eidolons here. She needs a 4-cost team cost. So it's already double of what this Castorice team needs to be good. I honestly feel like the 2-cost team for Castorice is better than what the 4-cost team for Aglaea can do. I don't think it's largely different in terms of the damage it can do. I just think that Castorice does do more damage, even while it might be a little bit more damage, with a 2-cost team versus a 4-cost team of what you need for her, right? So this is already kind of bad for her. I think that she is the worst out of the bunch here in terms of like best in slot teams. Now on to someone like the Herta, right? The Herta, first of all, is kind of weird in a way that you do always need one Erudition unit. Luckily, we do have a lot of free-to-play units here, and she can also be used very fluidly with someone like Remembrance MC, right? So this also plays a really big role into how much team cost she has, but the overall team cost is actually pretty fluctuative here, right? So I would say the team cost for her is anywhere from 2 to 4 as well. So like literally her best in slot team is going to be a 4-cost, but she can run very good on a 2-cost team as well. And so her 2-cost team here would be the Herta, and then probably Tribi as well. And then you would probably have a Herta on the team here, and then you'd have like Gallagher on the team here as well. That'd be your 2-cost team. There's your 2-cost. Like there's a lot of different 2-cost teams you can run with her. There's a lot of 3-cost teams you can run on her. She's extremely free-to-play friendly, and honestly, I would say her team cost is, in comparison, probably on par with what Castorice's is. Now, the reason why I'd probably put her maybe 1 notch lower is just because you're kerfuckled to using Erudition on the team. Like, you have to use an Erudition unit on the team. Well, I guess it's the same for her, right? You always need one to stay on the team for her, so I mean, like, yeah, kind of the same, but I would say the team cost is the same for both Herta here and also for her as well. Now, Mydei is actually a little special situation, right? I feel like Mydei's team cost is probably the most free-to-play of all the team costs, just because of the fact, like, I think you can generally run him in most teams. Like, you can run him in kind of whatever team you want. If you needed him to act like a sustained character, I feel like he could do that job pretty nicely. So honestly, guys, I would say in terms of team cost, I think Mydei is the #1 contender here for having the best, like, team cost wise, just because of the fact, like, he can be ran in so many different teams. You're kerfuckled to running her in Erudition teams or dual DPS teams, right? You're kerfuckled to using her with a sustain team, right? You can run him in a sustainless team. You can run him in a team without even running any other character on the team, and he still performs really well. Like, this guy is insanely broken just on his own. So for that matter, I think he by far is the best in terms of team cost. Now, the final section here is damage when dealing it. They're all pretty consistent in damage. I'm just going to give them a quick little ranking of the damage here. I think Aglaea is #2. I think she is the #2 here. I think she does do a lot of damage when having her in her best in slot team. I think in a close second place here would probably be the Herta and her best in slot team in AoE situations. I would say Mydei comes in 4th place here. But he's just incredibly consistent. That's what I would say with him. And then finally for Miss Castorice here, I would say that she's the number 1 here. I think that she is the creme de la creme. She is the main bitch. And I feel like she is going to be doing the most damage out of these. Now, with talking about that damage, it does kind of lead us into our next thing here, which is free-to-play viability. How much better of a DPS is Castorice really compared to these options right here, right? If I were to bring up the Pride Win tier list right now and tell you where I think she's going to be at, I don't think she gaps them. I think she's on the same level as every one of these DPS here. I think that she is the best out of these DPS. I don't think she's a full tier ahead. She is not like the Acheron when Acheron released, right? Where she's like miles ahead, right? I think she is a little bit ahead, but I think she is still up here, right? So like, I don't think she's power creeping too much in terms of damage. She is not much better, okay, guys? So with that being said, let's go ahead and now talk about her teams, right? Because teams play a massive role into how good she is for free-to-play players. So let's go ahead and talk about it now, right? First of all, like I mentioned before, you are kerfuckled into using a sustain character, right? I don't think there's any world you run her sustainless. So any of these sustain characters you see me highlighting here, these are musts for your account, right? Like you have to have these on your team for her to be functional or her to actually work at a decent rate, right? So you definitely do need a sustain character in the team. So that already eliminates one side of your team, right? So let's just go ahead and put a team counter here, right? You have 1, which is your Castorice here. Your 2 is your sustain character here. Not to say that her sustain options are good, because she does have a very free play option in Gallagher that is in probably one of her best in slot teams, and also Locho works really well here too. Very free to play viable in terms of the option you can use here. Whaj is just there for the additional healing you get, not really for the energy she provides, because Castorice can't take use of the energy. But it does bring us now to the 3rd person on the team, or the 3rd slot on the team, which is generally going to be a buffer. So let's go ahead and talk about buffers now, right? Because I think in terms of buffers, guys, let's talk about the elephant in the room, Sunday, right? I do not think that Sunday is the best in-slot option you can run on a Castorice team. Now, the reason I don't think that is because, first of all, his whole kit, while it does want memo sprites, right, there is no buff to the dragon pre-summon, guys. And what do I mean by this? So, essentially, whenever you use Sunday's abilities, right, he will buff the memo sprite. The problem is that the memo sprite's not in the field. Her dragon's not in the field, usually when you'd be using Sunday, right? Because when you use Sunday, your advance actioning her to the front and her memo sprite, but her memo sprite's on the field, so whenever you get the memo sprite on the field, it doesn't get the buffs and carry over the buffs, which is already a shot in the dick for Sunday, right? That's already hands down pretty fucking shit, right? So essentially, you need to tune the team up enough so she's able to get Dragon out, and then you send it to the front, right? Because you want to make sure Dragon's on the field before you're using any of his abilities, which does turn into you using more half-baked dragons at times, right? Secondly, guys, his ultimate move, also kind of shit for her. Why? Because when you're ulting with him, it's giving her energy back. She doesn't need energy, right, guys? So honestly, guys, while yes, I think Sunday is an option you can use, I don't think he's the best option by any means. But what does that leave us with for the best in-slot options? I think our best in-slot options here are Tribby here, guys. I think Tribby is going to be one of her best in-slot options because she does help the rest of the team, especially you can use her in dual DPS teams. And then also Remembrance MC as well. I think Remembrance MC plays really nicely there because the buff can carry over. And then on top of this, guys, you're getting an AoE crit rate and crit damage buff for the memo sprite. So like basically you're getting free crit rate, crit damage all the time. Also, when you're putting true damage on the ally as well, guys, literally it automatically applies to your memo sprite too. So you're getting the true damage there, you're getting crit rate, crit damage there, and then you're also getting frequency of attack. So I mean, like, you really want to be healing, and like I said, best in slot Locha Gallagher, which rely on you having high frequencies of attacks. High frequency of attack is what they give you because Mim will be attacking. Also, Mim contributes to the HP pool of your overall team as well because they have a Memo Sprite, and Memo Sprites do count as a team member. They do contribute to the overall team HP, which leads to bigger damage with Castorice as well. So there's just a lot of things here that really play super nice here. Now let's hop into Throbbing and Ruame. These are both options that can be used. Silverwolf can be used in a mono quantum scenario. Sparkle can be used to increase crit damage because I feel like that is one of the areas that Castorice does struggle in, is crit damage. So you can definitely help out with the crit damage there as well. Zhao Cho applies additional debuffs, which also really help. I think Jade could work as well because Jade does have high frequencies of attack, or can have high frequency of attack. She's also Quantum, which plays in the mono Quantum. And then on top of this, guys, Jade also is going to be removing HP from allies as well. So that also plays into how much damage you're able to do. Then you have Pela, defense short, absolutely amazing, does work there well as well. Really, like, all these other buffers here are here for the reasons why you know they're here for. So, Mydei Blade. easiest thing here, right? You take away their HP, they do damage. They gain HP back, it helps out the team as well. Like, literally, it is such a great synergy to have Blade or Mydei on the team in a dual DPS scenario. It works out super well. Mydei preferable over Blade, but they are great options to run. Clara and Yunli. Now, Clara and Yunli are here because, first of all, they can act as a tank, which they take damage from the enemies. That means the enemies attack them. While the Deathwing is on the field, they can't technically die. So, I mean, the more they get hit, the more they can follow, the more damage they do to the enemies. You're losing constant HP with them. They act like a pseudo, like, sub DPS to stay on the team. So I do think both Clara and Yunli can also work on the team as well. So overall, these are the team options you have. As we mentioned before, Gallagher, Lotra being the best free-to-play healers, Trailblazer, Remembrance MC being a great option as well. So I put for teams insanely free-to-play friendly, guys. She is amazing for free-to-play players in terms of like her team building. Now onto the build. So first of all, guys, I will say this. She gets 50% crit rate for basically free. So crit rate aspect, pretty good, right? If you're running her with Remembrance MC, this is plus 10% as well. So this is around a 60% crit rate just off rip, which is super nice. You barely see that nowadays. This is not even accounting for any substats at all or any light cones you would run at all. This is literally just from running a 4-piece of the quantum set, her stats she has within her traces, and then also that extra 10% from Remembrance MC there. So all of these really good. You get free crit rate all around the board there. I fucking love it. It's amazing. I feel like the problem is Lightcone. There's not many free-to-play Lightcone options you can use for her. There's actually no free-to-play Lightcone option you can use for her, right? Like, her best in slot option is her Sig. Second best is going to be the Battle Pass Lightcone. Third best, it literally is like post-op conversation or a healing Lightcone just because of the base HP it gives. No other Lightcone gives you base HP in the game, and you don't really want to be running crit because you might start over critting with her if you start running crit, so that's down bad. So literally like post-op conversation, third best in slot, so you're missing a full passive there, so that's ass. Like, literally, I think this is the most unfree-to-play friendly thing about her, is literally the Lightcone situation. So take that for what you will. Overall, guys, I do feel like she is pretty free-to-play friendly just because of the fact that she does have a free-to-play friendly team. She is the technical, I guess I would say, best DPS in the game right now, and the overall build for her in terms of relics is not bad, but the Lightcone options is pretty fucking down bad horrendous. Alright guys, now on to 3.x and beyond. Let's go ahead and talk about this really quick. What does she offer? Buffs, debuffs, everything like that. So in terms of the buff she's offering for your team, she offers you a 10% damage increase for your team, which is nice. She also is going to be giving you a 20% all type res pin as well, so that means any type of character you have in your team is getting a res pin there. So that's also super good for her. That applies to everyone on the team, or it applies to enemies, right? So it technically applies to everyone on the team dealing damage to enemies. Overall, I would say someone like the Herta does offer more in terms of like future-proof ability, in terms of like the buff she provides, because Herta provides a massive crit damage bonus to the team. She also provides good damage bonuses to like this year edition characters in general. So I mean, like, overall, I feel like the Herta is like better in this respect to what she can provide to the team. She's very selfish in the buff she gives, but she does give 20% all res pin. She does give 20% or 10% damage bonus. She also offers a full account wide revive. So you have that as well. So just by having her in your account, you do have a revive. Now, overall, I don't feel like this is too strong, like the full account wide revive. If your account is built properly, you shouldn't be running into issues with any of your team dying regardless. The only time I can see this being super strong, guys, is if we have an enemy input into the game that literally insta-kills you. That is the only time that is strong. So as of right now, I don't know if there's any enemies that like really insta-kill you, but if there is an enemy that insta-kills you, then this is going to be needed, and that's very scummy of them to do. We'll talk more about that at the end of the video on should you summon for her. Next is going to be, doesn't have a best in slot team yet. Her best in slot team right now, guys, is a 2-cost team, meaning you're running a sustain character that doesn't offer much buffs other than healing. And then you have another sustained character like Remembrance MC, which is great, don't get me wrong. This could be expanded on a lot more in the future, and I feel like she will get a much better in the future. So considering she's already at the top of her game right now, I think she's only going to get better. Whereas I feel like we kind of already have Aglaea in one of her best in slot teams that is going to be right now, just because of how much you need to use Sunday, how much you need to have Miss Wham on the team. I feel like Castorice is setting up your account for the future a lot more than someone like Aglaea is. I feel like the Herta also has some options coming in the line, which is really good, and also Mydei can be slotting anywhere as well, but I do feel like her best in slot options are yet to come. So that is really good to look forward to. Now guys, for the final part of the video, should you summon for Castorice, right? So, or why shouldn't you pull for Castorice, right? Generally guys, I don't think we should be incentivizing the practice of putting global passives into the game, right? Or putting global passives in without a way for free-to-play players to get those global passives. They're already in the game. There's no way they're taking it out at this point, so I think I think that you shouldn't summon for this character. I think if the game gets to the point of you not being able to clear content, I know it's a single player game, right? I'm not even going to talk about it being a single player game or being a multiplayer game or whatever the case may be, right? Because yes, it is a single player game. You don't have to compete with anyone, right? But you do need to be able to beat the content in the single player game without having these premium characters. So I feel like Hoyoverse needs to implement something that basically allows you to get these global passives outside of these characters themselves, right? So I do have a video coming out on this in a couple days from now, so make sure you go watch that video in a couple days when it comes out, so you subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Overall, guys, my point is summon for if you want to summon for. I don't think you should incentivize the use of global passives without a replacement being there for free-to-play players. Overall, she is really good for free-to-play players, just because of the fact that she does offer the global revive. She has a really free-to-play team. She has a really easy build. The only thing that really sucks is the Lightcone situation. Overall, though, I think she's great for your account. I don't think she's a must-pull, but I don't think that she's the worst thing to pull for your account either. So, overall, I don't think she's a must-pull. I think that personally, I'm skipping her because I don't want to incentivize global passives, and my main account now is going to be used without any global passives. I need to see that the game is going to be able to be completed without global passives. That even applies to like when characters get buffed in the future. If they get global passives, if I can elect to not use the upgraded version, then I won't use it. So anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Subscribe if you haven't already. Bye-bye.